get gaveled to death.
6 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Ms. Amanda, if you can, or Ms. Jesse, can we all call the roll, please?
Okay, Alderman Harper,
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Shipley. Here. Commissioner Chauffeur.
Here.
Mayor Aiken is absent, Commissioner Peters.
Here.
And Commissioner Fairclough. Here.
We do have all members present, with the exception of Mayor Aiken, he has attended a personal matter, so that would be marked as an excused absence for him. But I do establish we do have a quorum. First up on the agenda is for the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting, which we had September 18th of 2023. If you will, board, please look over that.
Motion to approve?
Have a motion by Commissioner Harder to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Martin. Is there any other discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor to accept, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the reports for the monthly code enforcement report. Dating back to last month for September as well. Is there any questions for town staff over this report? Ask so freely. All right, any questions for town staff? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is for public comment. Do we have any comments? We've got two.
Well, I had my name on that sheet back there, if that,
I can't. You pull them up?
sure. Last month, I saw where you guys had tabled some things dealing with, subdivision regulations, and a couple of things on there caught my attention. Since I'm a developer, I just felt like maybe I needed to speak to that tonight, so. One of them was the tree, the recommendation that was made about 8-inch trees and over 8-inch trees, being, categorized on site. We had to fix the location of them and, take a farm and make a tree plan. Well, guys, I'm just tell you my perspective on that. Now, you got a finite amount of land in Atoka, Tennessee to develop. And we start getting very strict on what I can cut and what I can fill on a site. If you got a site, you got a hill, and then you got a valley, and I gotta take that hill and I gotta put it in that valley to make a flat piece of land to put roads, streets, and lots in. If I can't take those trees out and then take that ground out under that hill and put it in that valley, then I lose density. And density is what keeps my lot prices down, and it helps me make money too, but it keeps my lot prices down. So what you have is you're going to, I see this, if you're strict on this, limiting the amount of land that you have left to develop. is what I see. And I see the prices of lots going up similar to the prices of lots, say in Lakeland, Tennessee, where you have a very high-cost lot and a very high-cost house has to go on there. Well, I see Lockmead style, the first phase of Lockmead style houses being built in Atoka if you build those. But as we all know, it took Lockmead from 2005 to the present to build out, because our customers in Atoka are not Lockmead customers. So what I feel like you're gonna do here with some of these things, you're gonna make these subdivision restrictions and regulations so strict, our lot prices are gonna be so high, developers are not gonna be able to put lots in at decent prices. And you're gonna cut out the middle class folks who wanna send their kids to the public schools. That's always been our bread and butter here. But some of these rules and regulations can get so strict and prohibitive on development that we'll just price ourselves out. And we just won't be able to develop here very much. I think you could develop some, but not very much. And so the other thing I saw on there was something, we were talking about parking and streets and widening pavement and stuff like that. Well, I remember we went through a lot of you weren't on the planning commission at the time, but when Shelley was here, which was our planner at one time, one of the big things that she was trying to cut out was cul-de-sacs. And one of her deals was cul-de-sacs added a lot of pavement in subdivision. It just costed so much more to put a cul-de-sac in and all this stuff, traffic patterns and all this. Well, if we start adding pavement on streets, Atoka's gonna have to pave that as well at some point in time. It's gonna cost a developer a whole lot of money to add that much pavement on a street. So you gotta think about those things too. On one hand, we went through the exercise of cutting out cul-de-sacs, but one of the reasons was because of the pavement. And now we're talking about, instead of just enforcing our regular ordinances about public parking and where they can park, we're gonna make public parking on city streets greater. So I mean, I don't know where we're all going with this, but at some point in time, you guys are gonna have to dial it down on the regulations, in my opinion, or the price of these lots are gonna be so high, we're gonna cut out customers. And one last thing, we formed the IDB board to get commercial here, okay? Commercial is directly related to rooftops. If you make these restrictions so difficult on a developer and so costly, you're gonna cut out rooftops, which is gonna cut out your ability to attract the things that the IDB board is set up to attract. It's directly related. You want rooftop, if you want commercial in this town, you're gonna have to have more rooftops. You think you got a lot of rooftops in Atoka, and we do have a lot more than we did when we started. There's no question. This town is growing. But at some point in time, you're gonna have to have more rooftops to get the commercial you want, to get the sales tax base that you want. And if you're not growing in your community, you're gonna go backwards, because your tax base is gonna have to fund everything at a greater percentage. Your taxes are gonna have to go up higher. Your tax base is gonna get hit harder. So anyway, those are just a few things that I had on my mind, I want to talk to you about, and that's it. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? All right, moving on, next on the agenda is new business, the discussion and possible action regarding the draft of the Atoka subdivision regulations. I believe that this is going on, I thought Jim was gonna be here tonight. He was gonna pass the
I'm
bin.
standing in for Jim.
Okay, all right, I'll pass it forward to you, sir.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is start with the list of questions that you gave us. Has everybody had a chance to see those responses? Okay, do we want to go through those responses publicly? I'm okay if we do, I think we do. I just wanted to clarify that. All right. So I'm just gonna start at number one, and we'll go through and talk about them, okay? So how does the town prevent mass tree removal, clear cutting through the subdivision regulations? So section 4.1.2 Environmental protection gives direction on preserving large trees as part of the design process. While this is not as a strict requirement, it does give the planning commission some discretion in design. In addition, zoning ordinance 7.1.1 provides incentives for retaining trees through density bones as part of the PUD process. I'm not sure that bones is exactly what he meant to type, but maybe it is. Huh? Bones. Yeah. The subdivider developer could choose this process to regain density if the planning commission requires more tree retention through the subdivision process. So I think this speaks to Mr. Wayne's first comment, in trying not to make it a strict requirement and putting some incentive on it. So, that's, any discussion about that one?
I think there's some level of compromise, kind of like we were talking about last month, you know, where we, I think John brought up, Commissioner Hart brought up a good, you know, point, that, hey, you know, we're putting these utilities underground, we've got some roads, tree dies. You know, we do not want to tell them like, hey, you can't cut that, obviously, we want that for the safety of the public and the people who own the property around, like, we want that to not be an issue. But exactly what that compromise is.
I think it's gonna vary by development,
Right.
and it's gonna vary by topography and what needs to be done to make the infrastructure work, which is to Mr. Wayne's point,
Right.
so, okay.
Wayne, does that kind of address what you're talking about?
I'm not sure what y'all will be voting on. I don't know what.
It gives discretion to us and you as a developer. You know, it's like, on our lot, when we built, they cut down most of the trees, we have trees, but they say, you know, 3 or 4 trees on there.
Mhm.
And I think this is what that's referring to, isn't it?
It is, this is,
Or what about if you can't save any of it, but you replant some?
I think that you're already
Okay.
requiring them to plant per lot a tree.
Okay.
So what this does, Wayne, is it makes it an item of discussion, and it's trying to encourage you to preserve large trees, but it gives you an opportunity for the planning commission to discuss it, and if there is a way to do it, then talk about it and figure it out. If there's not, then you can say, hey, there's not a way to do it on this lot, and here's why, and you go on.
So my question, I guess, is gonna be, I guess I'm corrected, Wayne, you know, time sensitive, you know, if he's out there working on something, and he needs to clear this lot for whatever reason, to be able to have that discussion with the planning commission, you know, saying, hey, it's not gonna work for here, because, and this is one, and mainly not to educate me, you know, kind of on this process as well. So that's, I guess that's my issue, is, does that put time restrictions and restraints on
Well,
the developer?
So, I'm just, to answer your question, I'm gonna go to the beginning of
Yeah.
our subdivision development process. We take a piece of property, and like I said before, it's, West Tennessee has got, is roly-poly. It's like this. So nearly every piece of property we have left in Atoka has got topo issues, it really does. So the whole farm is got this. And so you have to cut, to get it flat enough where you can get your roads in there and get everything done, you can't go lot by lot. If you go lot by lot, then you have to have huge lots to save trees. Okay, so.
We could go development by development, couldn't we?
You could go development by development.
Okay.
You
I mean,
could.
that would help you out as well, wouldn't it? If we did development rather than lots, what I'm saying.
You have to. That's what I'm saying, is that you have to go by the whole development, the aspect of the whole farm.
Right.
I mean, if you're gonna develop it and you're telling me I gotta save all these trees over here,
Mhm.
then I'm gonna go, there may be a situation where I go, hey, there's no way to take this dirt, if, I have to have dirt to fill this
Yeah, I
hole.
understand,
And
what
so,
you're saying.
yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
the deal.
okay.
You know, it could be so cost prohibitive to do it lot by lot.
I guess that's my big question.
Yeah, I don't think we do it.
Like, what is the compromise, you know what I mean? Where we're being able to preserve, you know, whole subdivision being put in, or, you know, new buildings being processed, things like that. So that's my question, is like, what is the compromise? And I agree, I think it is, you have to go development by development.
I'd have to see the development at the time to tell you what kind of compromise you could have. But what you don't want to do is this is what I don't desire is from a planning commission. If a planning commission came to me and just put that, and just got really restrictive on it. So if you have guidelines are great, but they can get so restrictive that it'll hamper me from trying to do anything. And that's what I don't wanna happen. You can put you guys, everybody that's up there right now could say, well, I understand where Wayne's coming from. And I feel like that you guys understand, but the next planning commission that got up there, if you put too restrictive of a requirement in there, they could go the total opposite way. And then you could, that could kill the development. You follow what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So I think there's two things. One, the first section gives direction on preserving some large trees. The second piece is the PUD process. The PUD process is where there's some heavy incentives that work both ways, that gives some give and take, right? So the point is to have some tools that the planning commission can use and give some things, there's some negotiation because the PUD allows greater density. So the hope is, or the idea is that these two things are tools that give both parties some advantages, and they give them the space to work it out.
I think that's what 412.22 says basically, is it recommends, you know, a certain size stay, but if it's not impossible, then it becomes a discussion between the commission and the developer at that point.
Right.
It's an ask, it's not a tell, basically.
And,
So,
and the way the process goes, and Wayne, you jump in and you correct me at any moment. When you come with a preliminary plat, Wayne's already looked at his property and he kinda knows where his grading's gonna go. He hadn't done the design yet because he's got his preliminary plat. But he knows how many lots he's gonna get out, and he has an idea of what grading's gonna take, don't you?
That's right.
Alright, well then he goes into design and refines that. Alright, so that preliminary plat, he can already say, I might be able to save these trees on this part of the farm because I don't have to do as much grading up there, but I might not. But we can already have that discussion, I guess, is my point at the preliminary plat stage.
I guess my concern is, like you said, in the green notes, it does say, you know, well, the notes say, while this is not a strict requirement, it gives the planning commission some discretion. And kind of like was mentioned, I think we understand. But when I go back and I look at 412, where it says, you know, if no tree, 10 inches or larger, measured 5 feet above the ground, shall be removed if at all possible. And so, again, somebody else could interpret that exactly what Wayne's talking about, where, hey, it's possible to save that tree, it's just gonna cost you a lot. And we would like you to, you know, I'm gonna cost you that lot, that lot, that lot, that lot. And if we're giving bonuses on the PUD, and we're kind of saying that this is, you know, basically, you know, a recommendation, I just say we remove it altogether. Why have it?
Because you won't have somebody that's agreeable like Wayne.
Yeah, and I think you wanna have something so that you don't have somebody just come in and bulldoze everything there and lose all your erosion
We,
control.
you know, he's
I mean,
workable.
yeah.
He understands, you know,
Right.
but you might have somebody that we don't know, that,
Yeah,
you know,
and
I mean, I understand his plan completely,
Right.
you know,
I
and
just
I'm
like I
sure
said,
you
you
do
go
too.
in, yeah, Kelly said you got cut and
Yeah.
fill, you got underground water,
Right.
underground electric,
But
underground gas,
he's
you
not
got
the
sewer,
typical
you got
builder.
drainage.
I don't think,
It's,
I
you
think he's got more, a little more concerned and hard about the community than somebody else that we don't know.
Correct.
And I don't mean, I'm not just, you know, blowing smoke, but I do believe but if we take it out and he's done developing his part, and we get somebody that we don't know, who, like we've had in here before, you know, that causes an issue, Yeah, I don't know.
I just know that, like I said, for every new house, we're requiring 2 new trees.
That's
We're all-
not enforced.
But it's on code enforcement side, and see,
It's not enforced.
it should be enforced.
It should be.
That can change. But anyway, the other thing that we're also doing is we're requiring our new development standards a certain amount of green space. So we're already requiring, you gotta think about the developers that have given up the area, common areas now for, for the common area mailboxes. They've given up lots, because we're requiring for,
Federal.
stormwater
That's a
ponds.
federal requirement.
Correct, and then now we're asking for green space. And so we're already asking for the green space, and we're saying, and if we're telling them that, hey, this is not really a strict requirement, I just like to see it go there.
That's the discussion of the board, I mean, that's why we're having, it. So,
Yeah.
To have these discussions, and at the end of the day, it's what you guys want.
Because again, a different planning commission,
I still think this gives us the option to have the discussion. If it's
Yeah.
not there totally, then we lose that.
I'm just scared it gives a future planning commission the ability to restrict,
Hey, we might not be done with it for a while. I'm over, I don't have to worry about it.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, this whole thing is you guys as a board, y'all make the motions, you vote for it or you don't vote for it, I mean, it's your call. That's what we're literally up here to do. So, I mean, it's either support or it's not, at the end of the day, so.
I think it gives us the ability to work with the developer on what trees stay and what needs to be replanted, and kind of a compromise.
Well, let's move on. I got notes written down, and notes, and like I said, if it's something that you want, and
So-
you board member up here is free to make a motion and everything else and all that, we'll go from there.
If I may, I'm gonna add one more thing to it before we move on.
Yes, sir.
This will be highly dependent on the topography of a site. So you could pick a farm, that the farm is completely, it's a field already, except a island in the middle that's unplantable for whatever reason, has trees. It may be that that spot is wet, and that's why they can't farm it. It may be that Wayne is not gonna get into it with a lot because it's not buildable because it's wet. So it's real easy to preserve those trees. The next one may be the side of a hill like this, and he's gotta do a lot of cutting field. So it's really gonna be a site by site by site issue, which is why we did not come up with a more definitive way to do it, because it is gonna be very variable. So, with that, I will move on to the next one.
Okay, well then again, the only thing I would say, instead of taking it out, then I would add what we just talked about, that this is not a strict requirement. Add that language, that way there's no way somebody in the future could say this is a strict requirement. So is it a strict requirement or is it not a strict
Well,
requirement?
it basically says in point 2 that it's as is. I mean,
As
it's-
is, it doesn't say.
Well, that's what I mean, if we're going into tree caliper, we're specifying tree caliper, right? And so, now the question is, again, who's gonna go out and, do this tree study? Doesn't take long to get a 10-inch tree,
We're gonna come back to that.
Yeah, but also in the opening paragraph of 4.2 or 4.12, it talks about protection and service, and then it goes as required by the planning commission. I think that, in that paragraph right here, I think that gives us the flexibility to work with the developers.
And again, we're talking about future planning commissions being a lot stricter,
Well,
so.
Alright, next one.
Item 2. Should the residential street section be widened, or should parking be allowed only on the side of the street? Okay. So, there is some red text. So I'm gonna read that just because it's commentary for discussion purposes, okay? And you'll see that I made some slight changes in the actual table below. Alright, but long story short, I think we either, if we're gonna do parking on street, it needs to be on both sides or not at all. And I kinda lay out, I don't know if y'all have ever gotten a ticket for parallel parking facing the wrong way.
Yeah, in front of my own house.
Right. So if you do parking on one side,
Not in Atoka.
yeah, I've gotten that ticket as well. So, if you do parking only on one side, then basically whoever is facing the wrong way, you are putting them in a position where they have broken the traffic laws. They also have to cross a lane of traffic to get there, which is not safe, okay? So, that doesn't mean we have to do parking on the street. We can eliminate that, and we do have sections where it is eliminated. So the changes that you're seeing in the table, I widened the commercial alley and residential alley like 2 feet because they were very narrow in my opinion. And what I did was I matched the UDC in Shelby County that everybody down there is held to. And then I made the neighborhood local have parking on both sides. Now with parking on both sides, you will still have one lane in the middle. It'll be 14 feet wide. You can get your fire truck down through there. So. All right, long story short, that's the recommendations on item 2. Questions and discussion?
So I actually went and, not scientifically, but I measured streets.
Okay.
And using Sterling Ridge as examples, because I think it's where I'm at, I think it's talked about a lot. So, Eureka, basically from Ridgetop down where we have issues, I got 26 and a half feet. You go around the corner to Nugget, it's 27 and a half. And then Ridgetop itself is 27, and then Sterling Ridge I got 36.
Okay.
So, Ridgetop coming across doesn't seem to have a lot of issues, even though it's a half inch, only a half a foot wider. Doesn't seem to have a lot of issues, mainly because you've got a lot of backs of houses, you don't have a lot of driveways.
Right.
As opposed to turning onto Eureka where you've got multiple driveways and multiple people parking, so that's kind of where the issue goes. That road, is Eureka considered a neighborhood local then, or what would it be considered now?
Eureka is the one that is 26,
Yeah, 26
correct?
and a half, yeah, the short one that.
It was the neighborhood local, that is correct.
And so you're talking about going to 28 with that,
Yep, and that's curb to curb, so that includes your gutter pan.
and that's
Yeah.
including curb, so, and then allowing parking.
And then you would allow parking.
Under 28, if it's, I don't know if any other roads are considered under 28, but that would be the smallest one, and then we wouldn't allow parking on anything smaller.
So like, we've got a collector at 22 feet, that's 2 11-foot lanes, that is no parking. We have a mixed-use collector at 20 feet. And if that's the template that has sidewalks and wide green spaces in front of commercial, that is not on-street parking. So, the first one that, basically, if you've got 20 feet, you've got 2 10-foot lanes. Parking lane is 7 to 8 feet, parallel parking is what it is,
Right.
so.
But you just made a comment about the mixed use being 2 10-foot lanes at 20.
Correct.
It says on-street parking here on the, what's being displayed is 7 to 8 foot.
It does, and if you look at the template, they've got bump outs, right? So the parking is,
That, it's bumped in.
it's
okay.
bumped in,
Okay,
yeah,
I mean, that's fine, and that makes sense.
yep.
Yeah, because 28 is what's in the current ordinance for Atoka. Doing some comparison. Now, I guess this, I don't know if this is the right place to ask this question. How do we enforce and make sure that the streets are actually constructed to that parameter if we make 28 foot the standard for neighborhood local?
That would be when your layout and your building code official would be checking that. So, and public works, that's correct.
I guess my concern about widening streets is we are a daytime community, so again, a large portion of our population lives during the day. And so you have now streets with no cars on them, you know, we all know that wide streets, traffic speeds up, you know. And it seems like we're making this big change where essentially we got one street in all of Atoka that's got a problem. And so we're trying to.
The main one.
We're trying to widen, again, you gotta think about this is not just an initial development cost, this is a town of Atoka taxpayer cost, every time these roads get repaved.
I think I asked that question last
Yeah.
time.
It is in
The
fact.
Cost analysis,
Yes.
versus lining the road, what's it gonna look like? We ever hear back from anybody,
It really is, like, it's 2 feet over the width, it's that percentage, it's gonna go up.
You
So,
know
but,
what I mean, like, you're going out there and you're asking for these people, they're not gonna give you 2 extra free feet for free.
No, and you would
they're
not-
gonna charge that at some point in time, and the town's gonna make that, so.
yep,
You know, if the cost is X dollars for 26 feet, and then we widen it to 28 feet, obviously our cost has gotta go with that.
that's correct.
So-
Because again, if you have a subdivision with large estate lots, you know, where you're not gonna have a lot of street parking, you know, you're.
Right.
Longer driveways and more driveway parking, you know,
And
and
you-
again, you've got these wide roads that people are just looking at versus. when you
If it's
have a-
that type of development though, you're not putting in this type of street.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
But you got lot B that has some medium-sized driveways, but you drive through there and you still have a fair number of people that park on the street.
And they've actually gone in and added bike lanes because
Yeah.
again, because the traffic was, you know.
But yeah, if you're doing estate type lots, you're probably not doing curb and gutter. So you're gonna end up with probably this 22-foot section, and you're gonna have roadside ditches and be be urban, or not urban, rural, have a rural section. So,
So what's the length of, or what's the width of a road like Duncan or somewhere in Blades? Cause you don't see a lot of cars parking on those streets.
I wish I knew
So I'm
that.
trying to figure out why, why is Eureka, everybody park on Eureka, but, you know, you don't see them
I
on
think again,
the
it's
other
bigger
side.
lots, deeper lots,
Mhm.
it's density, I think it's a density issue.
it is, I believe.
You got a lot of short driveways.
Right.
Maybe two-car driveways, you park one in the grass to the left side, and you got 3. And that's probably why you see more cars parked on the streets than in Eureka. In any neighborhood that's got a short driveway, you're gonna have that. And that's something that I think we need to consider for the future.
So we need to look at lots and look at the density versus, the street width.
Right, versus just a general standard. Yeah.
I mean, I'm out in the region, out in the county area of this planning, committee, and my street that I live on is 20-foot wide. And it's a pain in the butt when I'm trying to get my camper in and out of my drive.
Right. So, it is a density issue, guys, y'all are exactly right. It's also I won't say, it's that school age, when you're in that time and you've got multiple vehicles at your house, either because you have kids that are driving, or you have kids with friends that are driving, or whatever, that's where you're gonna get that additional parking that is required most often. I mean, everybody's gonna have an occasional get-together at their house, but where you're seeing it on and on is where there are kids in the family, multiple drivers and multiple vehicles. So,
Any other questions, comments about this one?
I think 28, maybe 30 would be.
28 is what the UDC for Shelby, that's what all of Shelby County has gone to,
For the, neighborhood local, right?
for the neighborhood local, for that size street. And it is a curb and gutter section. It's a 50-foot right of way, so you've got grass strip and sidewalk outside of that. So,
Now, hey, go ahead.
I wouldn't wanna see anything lower. I mean,
I'm with you. So let me ask one question, for somebody that's outside of the town of Atoka, what would the neighborhood local width be? Would it be 28 also, or would it go down to the 22 on a collector?
it depends. So once you get outside of Atoka, if you go into Munford, they have their own subdivision regulations.
Yeah, no, I mean, Cause Atoka's
You about the
got,
planning region?
yeah.
Like the planning region.
Yeah.
So the planning region, technically, Atoka has some comment on that because we're providing sewer for it, so.
Not in part of it, some of, not in the vast majority of the region.
Well, I mean, if a development were to come in, now what it is now, that would be either the county road right away or the state road section. That's what you've got at the moment.
Okay.
So if it's unincorporated, it's gonna be whatever the county road standard is and then the state highway.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were asking.
Yeah. I may not make it clear. So, okay.
What's our current neighborhood local street width?
I think it is 28. I think we're not changing it.
Okay.
Yep. So. In general, we've tried to narrow things up. We've not tried to widen the streets. So it is this on-street parking issue that we've tried to not make it overly narrow. So,
Is Eureka out of code then? Should it have been 28, or was the regulations there to begin with? Or was it not?
I wish Eureka was 28 and not 26. So when it was done, I don't know. So based on the way I read, it should have been 28. So, but now I can't tell you when Eureka was built, right off the top of my head. I have to go back and look. It's been a minute.
Any other questions, comments about this one? All right, hearing none, let's move on to the next.
Okay. Item 3, should the town continue to require payment in lieu of construction or construction of required improvements on roadways adjacent to new subdivision? Following language should be added from the existing subdivision regulations. Subdivider developer shall improve the adjoining roadway the entire length of development or pay in lieu fee to the town for future roadway improvements. The town engineer should determine the improvements to be made or the in lieu fee. So,
My question there is, why would we just want them to go ahead and do it? Because if the developer pays the town an in lieu fee, and we go do this 10 years from now, we know it's not gonna cost 10 years what the fee that we collect now. So what's the advantage of giving an option, and why not just make them go ahead and make the improvements in the beginning?
truthfully, I do not see an advantage for the developer paying, but the developer may have a reason that they choose. And I think it's just giving them the choice, but that's Ben's opinion of the reason. In my experience, I have never seen a developer actually pay the fee. They've always billed it. But I've also never had them tell me they didn't like having the choice. I mean, I don't know what to tell you there.
I think we as a town now would, we'd have to put it in a separate interest-bearing account, it couldn't go in the general funds, and somebody's gotta keep track of that, and it just sounds,
It gets complicated.
complicated.
And it is, like we discussed last time, if we're doing a fee in lieu, our cost to build it is different than the developer's cost.
He's gonna have a lower cost since he's already putting in the other roads.
Right.
Versus.
And we're gonna have to bid it out, and we're gonna have to meet, our procurement requirements and all that kind of stuff. But there may be a reason that that's what they need to do at the time, so.
Any other questions, comments about number 3? Moving on to number 4.
Okay. Should the town require and provide street lighting or regulate private, common, and residential lighting? All right, so 4.6.5, the subdivider shall bear the financial responsibility for the original installation cost for the materials and labor for street lighting. Subdivider shall choose one of the available street lights shown in Appendix 8 as provided by Southwest Electric. I saw that was in the back. Street lights should be installed between the curb and the sidewalk, following the specifications provided by Southwest Electric. The subdivider shall consult with Southwest Electric to service the subdivision with power and locate on the design plans the probable location of street light poles. That is the proposed language. If y'all want to look at the sample lights, They are literally the last couple of pages.
Was there any feedback, I mean, so the ones that got added to phase, 6 and 7 for Sterling Ridge, and some of the newer ones that are being put around the town are just like a phase down LED. Why is that not an option in here, or do you know, or is that more of a basic design, or was these, do you know if these were the only two designs that they wanna move forward with, going forward, or, I mean, are these strictly just subdivision?
So I'm not sure specifically which lights you're talking about. Where are they?
They're the new ones that were added in Sterling Ridge
Okay.
are just a
Concrete
square.
pole, right?
Yeah.
It's a
you know what I'm talking about? I
octagonal
mean, they're just a
35 foot
basic
Cobra
LED,
head.
which are fine, I mean,
I call them industrial striped lights, it's what you see like in, parking lots for like trucks and things like that.
Right, it's like a
Truck stop
35 foot
area.
concrete.
Yeah, it goes
Cobra
up, it
head.
goes out, yeah.
So that is a more standard pole because it's less expensive. It's, I mean, it depends on what type of aesthetic that you are going for.
Okay.
And I think these lights were some of the more aesthetic ones that Southwest had.
decorative styles, then,
Yeah, more decorative.
We had a brief conversation about possibly taking the streetlights out of, Southwest and basically the town paying the bill and making them private lights, having the lamp post in the yard. Smaller poles, more poles, every lot has one pole, but it's a smaller pole. Again, you talk to 5 people about streetlights and 3 love them and 2 hate them, and the next day, vice versa. And I know from a safety standpoint, I'm assuming the police department likes them. Do you feel they make a difference?
Yeah, I'm sure lighting always helps with, crime prevention,
Okay.
you know.
One of the things I noticed in this is it doesn't tell how far apart, what the minimum or maximum length is between streetlight to streetlight.
Okay, that's an excellent question.
Let's face it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a design parameter based on how much light you want on the street. There are standards for roadways, but it varies a lot, right? There's a difference between, I think it takes about 6-foot candles to be able to recognize a face at 20 feet. But it takes about 50-foot candles to film an NFL game, right? So there's a big difference in between those two things. I don't think that that's something that we have outlined because we're kind of relying on Southwest Electric to help us with the lighting design. But there are standards that can be referenced for roadway safety that we can add if that's what we need to do. So,
I thought there was some foot reference in here somewhere.
In
There
the,
was 500 feet, but it was more.
4.6.5.
Where?
4.6.5. We're talking about no more than 500 feet.
yeah, but that's been lined out in the current one. Yeah, cause I know one of the emails that came out, specified how much light was spread out based on the angle and so forth, and gave distance.
And depending on the light that they choose, it's different lumens that come from those lights, so
Right.
that's correct.
it would change the distance of what they would need to be.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. So that's what you're designing to a foot candle standard. And so basically, and I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm a transportation engineer. So I'm gonna tell you about all I know about lighting design. But basically a light puts out a certain amount and they measure how far, the farther you get from the light, the more it tapers, the more the light wanes, right?
Right.
So they find the edges to where it meets the standard, and that's how it sets the distance. So
And it's also gonna depend on the height of the light.
it absolutely does. That's why you're Pedestrian scale lighting is usually 14 feet, 12 to 14 feet. What you were talking about the light poles in people's yards are generally 12 to 14 feet. So,
Oh, I was thinking they shorter than that, but if you have one in every lot, but, and I guess a concern about specking a light, we were just mentioning, are we locking ourselves in a box by specking a particular water valve, right?
Right.
I think kind of a similar thing, if we go specking a light here, again, these things are constantly changing, manufacturers are
Yeah.
coming in and going out, and, I don't know, I'm a little leery of that.
I think the intent is to spec what Southwest's approved list is.
Right.
Yeah.
And that may change, but since Southwest is our provider, that's probably not gonna change.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's in the actual subregs. So what you're seeing in the back is actually what they have spec'd right now.
Right. And then somebody included in that email about the lights, how to choose a suitable light distribution for LED areas and site lighting and so
Yeah.
forth.
And there's also a big thing on K values, you know,
Yeah.
a 5,000 K values is putting off a whole different type of light than a 2000, you know.
Yes.
Right.
My
And then it goes
wife
into the
talked
different
about
types
that.
of distribution, you know, the handles and so forth. So I think that's something that goes with Southwest guidance and the developer, I would believe, depending on what type of area you're looking at.
Right.
So right now, the way it current reads is, we've already got it in the subregs that the developer's gonna install the lights, right?
Yes.
And we've already got a spec on there about, Southwest Electric, the intersections in the 500 feet. I don't see a reason to change.
Only 500's been lined out.
It's been-
In what we're proposing is to change, but if
Yeah.
we don't change, then the 500 would stay in.
Right. Yeah.
It would just stay as it is current.
Is that 500-foot lined out because based on the lights, that distance needs to change?
I couldn't answer that.
Is that correct?
The beam pattern could change from fixture to fixture.
So we don't want to
More or
limit the
less.
500-foot is why it's being lined out, which is, I think if we're choosing their current decorative design, then, and basing the installation on whichever light fixture that is, then I think we're,
That's
I
the
think we're
primary
being
design
covered.
change.
Right.
Yeah.
so I don't have a problem taking.
It says no more than 500 feet. You can always do more, you know, you can always do 400 feet. But again, that's why Southwest has engineers, electrical engineers, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the primary change is the change to the more decorative fixtures and the removal of the 500 feet and just going with the, whatever it designs out to be. It will not be farther than 500 feet for any of these fixtures that they've selected.
Yeah.
I just need to know, I would like to know the cost, you know what I mean? Are we talking $200 for what we're doing now and 1,000 for what we're changing?
I
That'd be
think the
good to
cost
know.
was in that email that was sent out.
Yeah, hang on a
Yes.
second, I've got
I
it.
think it was, yeah.
You never got it, man.
Yeah, hang on a second, I got the cost right here, John. Option one. Here, I'll let you look at it. Oops.
But that was a good email. I mean, it was very informative on there.
Depending on the
so
size.
I
It
like how
starts
they
anywhere at
organized that.
13 and goes up to 26, 3,500, 3,600. Depending on the lights and so
I was
forth.
asking for, something other than, you know, truck stop light, you know?
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't intend to take it like that either. All right, any other questions or comments in regards to, number 4?
So, bases are 625.
Yes.
So you're looking at
Anything further on
pretty
number
much
4?
expensive.
No, sir?
All right, let's move on to number 5.
Okay. So plat review, what stops a patchwork of phases? Many developers' plans have different ideas. So the preliminary plat would lock in the overall project. So when a phase or phases is submitted for final plat, it would be required to comply with the approved preliminary plat. So, does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Number 6.
Yeah, so no change on that. Bond or final layer, thought we did not want to do that any longer. Correct. The following language has been added. At the time of the final plat is presented for approval, all improvements shall have been made in conformance with the town specifications unless minor items are specifically deferred by the planning commission due to seasonal weather-related issues. The amount of surety instrument, performance bond, or cash bond will be the amount needed for the deferred items. No building permits will be issued until the final plat is recorded. So, point was an agreement that, yeah, we were gonna pave it, put the surface layer on at the final plat level.
Gotcha. So we're gonna put our base layer and our top layer on.
And our surface mix. Yep. So, and at that point, y'all will be the ones that decide if any items are deferred, and we only bond the things that are deferred.
I thought we also agreed on adding the provision in 4.3.11 to add coring.
We did,
Be
that's,
done, and I
that's
didn't-
later.
I didn't see that in that section, so we added.
It's item 14. It
Okay.
just ended up further down the
All
list.
right, all right,
Yep.
just wanna make sure.
Okay.
Any questions, comments in regards to number 6?
I mean, I like the idea, because we've heard from time and time again, leaving the base layer on is not a good idea for years at a time, right? I guess at this point, it's gonna put the developer in selling those lots to his builders. In the event a street gets damaged, never mind, the final plat's already recorded, well, before the subdivision's accepted.
Subdivision's not been accepted anyway, so
Right.
what theoretically, what the reason that we're considered this so strongly is that by putting that surface layer on there, you're protecting your base course, you're protecting your subgrade,
Yeah.
and then your drainage works correctly because your asphalt is to grade and you can use your gutters and your inlets. So theoretically, this should help reduce the number of things that he's gotta fix at the end.
That was my point, I just wanted to, because it said it, you know, in the, well, got handed first, it said that wouldn't be done till till a build out, final layer would be put done at the end, so you've struck that out and added that, so
Right.
we're good.
Any other questions, comments, number 6? Hearing none, number 7.
6.3.7, street speed. Does this set them or does it match current Atoka norms? The answer to that is the section simply describes the different types of streets. So, that's all that does.
Okay. Any questions or comments about that?
Do we really need to put the speed limit in there, if we're just describing the streets?
You're putting your expectation. There are reasons that you might choose to change it from your base, but not generally. So yeah. I guess there's no risk to putting it in there.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions, comments? All right, number 8.
4.3.7.7, easement with 50 foot. This is for the easement width only. The driveway should be contained within the easement. 50 foot is typical for this type. So,
Questions, comments about that? Moving on, number 9.
okay. 4.3.9.2, chart. I don't agree with this. Explain how parking would work. If these are approved, widths would need 2 parking signs. We would need 2 parking signs. Amended as discussed, see below. Does it say see above?
That's all parking stuff you talked about.
Oh, yeah, it does say see above. Why did I say?
You're used
I
to
can't
saying see
read.
below.
Yeah. All right. So do we want to go back to and look at any of the things in item 2 to answer number 9? Any discussion?
I think it was just the chart, I was just making sure, and you've addressed or corrected some of those, so.
Okay.
Any
Alright.
questions, comments about that? Hearing none, moving on to number 10.
All right, 4.12.2, or 4.12.2. When does this take effect, or is it just covered in 4.12.3? It would be part of the planning commission action for consideration. So it would be part of what y'all voted on.
Any
All right.
questions, comments about number 10? Hearing none, number 11.
All right, so this one is about the final layer that we just discussed. The plan is to keep that in there and keep that as part of the requirements before the final plat.
Further questions or comments? Number 12, please.
Okay. Page 19, section 2.3.1.2 regarding minor changes. Town planning staff will determine if the proposed changes are minor or major in nature. Do we have any definition of what would be considered minor versus what would be considered major? So we said there's not currently a definition of a minor or major change, and I threw something out for discussion, straw man, if you will. If the plat changes result in lot additions or subtractions, gains or losses in common open spaces, it should be considered a major change. If we are only redefining lot lines, no lots or common open spaces have been gained or lost, and all lots still meet the minimum criteria, then it's a minor. Just a suggestion for discussion.
What are on a plot, the numbered articles on a, 1 through 25, or, there's numbered.
Yeah, all these
lines. What are those
attestations.
called? Definition, or what are those things, what are those called?
So there's attestations that the engineers, surveyors, and all those make, and then if, depending on the lot, and I may not fully understand exactly which ones you're talking about, so I'm gonna go through a couple things. So each individual lot has got the lot geometry. So the 4 sides, bearing and distances, and that's how a surveyor lays it out, but it's 2, also how we check and make sure it meets an R1 criteria and R2 criteria for square footage, right? So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
does that kinda answer your question?
I guess I'm just trying to, there's, at the bottom of a plot, there's, the key definitions, I guess, there's
You talking?
numbered articles, and I guess if one of those changes is what I'm considering.
If one of the, there's a word.
You know what I'm talking about, the numbers, if those change, would that be considered a minor or a major?
That's up to you
definition?
guys.
So, that's what I'm trying to get at, I guess.
If one of the criteria, agreed upon criteria for the plat could or could not be met, is that reason for a change? Or major or minor change? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be a major change, or would that be, up to the staff to determine?
I think it depends on what it is and what you want the definition to be. I think the reason I threw out a possible definition was for a place to start to try to define it. Because I know we need to be as clear as we can. That helps everybody, staff and developers, so.
I definitely don't want it just to be left at the discretion, because that goes on feelings.
Right.
And so I do
So in
think
other
the
words, you don't
definition
wanna,
is.
you don't wanna make it as the chair.
I-
That's what it
Well, I
said,
mean-
the planning commission chair would make it.
Well, no, I mean, because, but they're, if you don't define it,
So I think he's talking about the notes.
I wanna be as
on the plats,
consistent
like
as
these.
humanly possible, is what, I wanna
The
be.
general
I
notes
hadn't read
they
that
have
book
on
yet,
here.
but I wanna be as consistent as humanly possible,
Yeah, you got
know,
to
and-
answer that, we need to answer that before you look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Is it the note, does that make sense?
It's the general notes.
So
It's
I
really,
think those would be, I think if the general notes change, that needs to come back to that needs to be identified and come back to the commission. I don't know if that's considered a minor or that's what I'm trying to figure out, if that's considered a minor or a major.
well, I think it depends on what that note is. If that note is removing the HOA, then that's obviously a major thing that we don't want to have happen. I think I see what you're saying now. Thank you for that. Cause I was
I'm
thinking
sorry, I don't know
of
what those
project
are called. I guess
commitments.
I don't know what those notes are called, so.
Yeah, so,
You know what I'm saying? Is there language in there to get that?
yeah,
Well, it
That's what
looks
I'm
like it
thinking.
says the chair.
I was thinking of something else, but,
You know, number 12 says
Really?
the chair has the discretion to do it.
really, that ought to be something, and that we ought to be able to catch in our QA process of the final plat, right?
Right, and I guess I'm just looking for definitions, and I was just trying to
Yeah,
define that, you know, if notes are removed, then that's considered a major change.
so,
That's what you're talking about right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, usually those are numbered, I guess, or I've seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah, usually they are. I would pull up the Sterling Regional Remove, it's gonna be sideways. I can fix it.
yeah.
I'm just saying, if notes are changed, then that goes back to the planning commission, some sort of language, trying to see if that's something in there or not.
And I would kind of call those the project commitments. You're committing to an HOA, you're committing to common open space, you're committing to
Right.
those things. So,
Well, if
mean, another way of
we
doing
leave
it
as
is-
and they
You know what I'm
change
saying?
it,
That's what I'm
we'll
saying.
approve it.
I mean, another way of doing it is checks and balances. In other words, you don't have just one person saying it's minor versus major. But if the town engineer, the town planner, and the town, somebody within town staff all agree, then again, you know, you've got checks and balances. It's not just one person on whim.
Yeah, and that's what I don't want that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we want that either, so.
No.
Is there language in there then for that?
Yes.
Or-
I mean, we could add it. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I was wondering where that language is at.
So, and, you know, like, in the case of an HOA, that's a requirement, you can't pull a requirement, so.
We could possibly add that definition as a starting point to the subdivision regulation.
Well,
For that section. Or,
and it sounds like, is the base definition about lot changes called an open spaces, and then we add to it project commitment changes?
Yeah,
Is that,
I like that.
is that what I'm
Yeah.
hearing?
Yeah,
Because what you got written is,
yeah.
it takes care of almost everything.
Well, to speak to John's point, would it be helpful to have, just having identifying the three people that have to sign off on it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Instead of
Yeah,
creating a whole
that'd be
definition
good.
for you?
I'm good with that too.
I'm good, yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Might be easier.
It wouldn't have to come to us,
Yeah.
just y'all.
Well,
Unless it's-
like
unless
John
it's a
said,
Minor
they-
change, it's considered a minor
Yeah,
change
right.
if approved by
Minor
town
change,
staff,
yeah.
town
Yeah.
engineer, town planner.
Mhm.
And that's the
Stuff-
definition,
stuff like
period.
And that's the definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
stuff
Okay.
like that can be basically brought to, in an email, update, this is what we got.
And that way you got three people, like John said, you got three people checking all,
Yeah,
that are in, that would have to be in agreement.
Yeah.
that'd be good.
You
That
completely
is
scratch
simple.
off 12A.
Yeah, we can completely scratch off 12A
I
after
don't know,
that.
I don't know who idea that was.
I like it.
I trust the judgment of the planning staff and make the determination.
I don't know who,
We're
I
the chair. Sign
don't know
off.
who threw it in there, but well played. All
Good
right.
job.
Yeah, I think you need to add the chair to that,
That's what I
that
said,
checks and
Bob.
balance too.
Any other discussion, comments or discussion for 12? Are we good with that? Kinda what we said?
Oh, we're taking 12A off, is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
I liked it though.
hearing none, I appreciate your favor. Hearing none, we'll move on to number 13.
Okay. Change Southern Standard Building Code reference to International Building Code. That has been done.
Any questions, comments about that? Hearing none, moving on to 14.
Okay. Coring of asphalt, 6.6. In order to verify the thickness of asphalt before acceptance by the town, asphalt in a subdivision will be cored to determine thickness of asphalt laid. Locations will be determined by the town engineer or their representative. Once cored, asphalt will be patched with appropriate cold patch and compacted in place. Any locations that shown deficient depth less than the section shown in the approved construction plans. If cores are found to be short, then a determination will be made by the town what remedy is required to bring the asphalt up to the agreed depth. Developer shall notify the town of the scheduled paving so that the town can have a representative on site during paving.
And again, this is something that we're gonna do in the beginning.
Yes. So we added the last line
Yep,
because if we're present during paving, you don't have to core it.
okay.
And I don't mean we, like SSR, I mean we, the town of Atoka. So whoever that is. Because there is a way to monitor the screen and
Okay,
know.
well, with saying that, then we need to add either or.
Yeah. Yeah, and who from the town? Is it public works director, code inspector?
Well, what we said was the town engineer or their representative, and the plan is that there's space in that their representative to be a code official that's been trained on some asphalt, or a public works official, or whomever.
That's my concern, is I don't,
Yeah, in that case, I'd almost like to see some timing, because I don't want the developer to call at 3 o'clock saying, hey, we're paving in the morning.
Agreed?
You know, there would need to be some kind of, some kind of notice.
Yeah, 24-hour heads up, please.
also,
I mean,
if the town actually sends out, you know, we're not just picking out, I don't know, get one of the police officers to go out there, technically that falls under town staff, I'd like to
Yeah.
have someone that actually is certified or knows a little bit about it.
Okay.
As opposed to just leaving it blank as town staff.
Yeah. Or government representative.
Not that I don't trust our.
But it wasn't the express.
Would you be comfortable with public works director
Yeah.
or his or her designee?
Yeah, I like that, like public works
Yeah.
director or code report, I mean, just somebody who's got some kind of knowledge on it.
Do they,
Public works director or designee?
Yeah.
our future public
Oh,
works
from
director
public
gonna
works.
have that
Do
knowledge?
you,
Is that something?
do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I can tell you right now, they're not picking up,
Okay.
they're real bad out there.
Yeah. I just want someone with some knowledge on it. as opposed to-
Totally agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
all right.
Any other discussion about this one?
Sticky out.
Questions, comments about 14? Hearing none, moving on to 15.
All right, 15 is traffic impact study. 2.2 point, a whole bunch of twos. For all developments, a traffic impact study will be required to determine the overall impact of the development to the surrounding traffic network. Generally, the guidelines for the traffic impact study will conform to those laid out by the Tennessee Department of Transportation. Before beginning a traffic impact study, the developer's engineer should schedule a meeting with the town engineer or their representative to refine the scope and expectations for the report for their specific development. So, the TDOT guidelines, depending on the impact and the number of trips generated, the radius they want you to look at increases, right? Sometimes that gets larger than what will be necessary for a development. Hence why we want to have the meeting and try to define the scope.
But that should prevent somebody saying, want to put a subdivision in the middle of Mead Lake and not including the intersection of Mead Lake and 206.
Correct.
Leaving that out. Yeah.
That's correct.
Any other comments or discussions about point 15? All right. Any other comments, discussions about the Atoka subdivision regulations?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
On 6.3, which is page 66 of the old one, it goes back to talking about inspections, and 6.31 says the planning commission should not recommend decision on required public improvements, nor shall the planning commission release nor reduce instrument until an appropriate government representative submits a certification stating that all required improvements have been satisfied. Who is that government representative? Is that the public works director, the code enforcement?
I thought it was more.
631,
Point one.
yeah, point one, page 66
Should
of the
be
new
our,
one.
our contracted engineer or probably public works director, but more than likely contracted engineer to confirm that the as-bills are accurate. Because you can get an as-built, but it could be that they, it's not accurate information.
Yeah, because, I mean, my question, it says government representative, it goes back to what we just discussed. You know, is it chief? Is it public works director? Is it Mark? Town administrator?
Yeah, I think typically for a reduction in surety instrument, I think, just speaking of staff, we rely on the town engineer to make sure everything's done the way it's written and could sign off.
Okay, so
They would sign off and say, okay, everything's been done.
So we want to put their town engineer? Yeah,
I mean, we can do that, yes.
Town engineer or designee?
I would say or designee,
yeah,
I would like to leave y'all the flexibility if you have, you don't have one right now, but you're working your way towards another building official. If that building official has the comfort level and expertise, if they feel comfortable checking off on this stuff, that you can use them as well, or public works staff as that works out. So, I don't think that some of these duties are gonna ever fall to chief of police. He's got a full plate of what he's doing.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that's the intent, but I do understand.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, you know, when you put government representative, somebody can go, hey, you're coming with
Right.
this.
Can you sign off on this for me?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yep, you're absolutely correct.
Engineer designee.
Yeah. So we'll have that language.
Thank you.
Take a picture.
Paul speaking, because we know a thing or two, because we've seen a thing or two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done quality control before, so, yeah,
Yeah,
and that was a big thing, you know, who can sign off on what jobs and
yeah.
validation and so forth.
Nope, makes perfect sense.
Any other questions, comments?
There was one, it was on fire protection here, and we were having that discussion before, let me find it. Because we call it a specific valve for, Mueller valve, and I understand Mueller's a good valve, but, you know, what happens 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, their quality goes, or another valve company comes up and is better quality? Shouldn't we just say, as specified by the Public Works Director for the required?
We could.
Let me find that.
Would you be comfortable with Mueller more equal? Or equivalent?
Or handle, or, because who has to,
Well, ultimately, it's the Public Works Director that's gonna make the final decision. So, I mean, and that's why I say valve as specified by the Public Works Director. For the simple reason, if you put a specific manufacturer or equal in there, you know, he may want Mueller because they're the best right now, but the builder could come in and say, well, Stargate is just as equal as. Gives him the latitude he needs for specifying certain things.
you got the section on that?
It's
on the
4617, thanks, Kurt.
Page 50.
50.
Thank you, sir.
Is Mueller a brand or a style?
It's a brand.
It's a
brand.
It's a brand. Mueller Brass up in Covington.
Right, yeah.
It's
But
a
it's,
brand,
I know, there's,
yeah.
well,
Because-
some companies make equivalents,
Yeah, because you got
Or
several.
fits the same, it just different.
I just wanna make one comment, there's several photo, or diagrams that need to be updated, I was pointing those out to Amanda. Example is the one on, for 412 section, which is on page 34. Both those diagrams and several others throughout the whole document are not easy to read.
And blurry.
Yeah, blurry,
Cover word.
yeah.
So what do you want of those, like appendix A, appendix B, like added on as appendixes and?
Either clear them up or make them appendixes so that you can see what we're seeing. And then, I think that's it. Amanda talked me out of the others.
I think some of that blurriness is, the whole way we're from working document, so we'll get them cleared up in the final, y'all move forward from that, we'll make sure they're
Yeah, I mean.
clean diagrams. It's certainly a notable point there.
Yeah, there's a bunch. And then the other thing is, I noticed we referenced the light post as appendix 8, and when you go to the back here, it says A appendix.
Yeah.
So, oh, okay, there's,
appendix A, but then it has
Appendix
this logo
A
up
says
there on
appendix
top.
A.
yeah, yeah, but like over here, it says appendix A.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not consistent throughout the
Oh, okay.
document, that's all. Okay.
Any other questions, comments about the Atoka subdivision regulations from any other board member or staff? All right, hearing none, it's action of the board. How do y'all want to proceed with these moving forward?
Are we able to recommend this going forward with the changes in place?
Yes.
You make the appropriate motion.
It's too big for me to try to think about. You have to do it.
And a lot of changes to the, you'd have to make in the motion. You have to list.
We have to list
we're talking
everything?
about.
You have
Do
to
we need
list
to get,
everything?
do we need,
Yeah.
what's the best way to handle that then?
That's a good question.
That's a good question, I mean.
That's you
The
got.
best- best way to handle it is let staff clean it up and come back next month.
I don't know if I'm,
No, I hate to do that to them.
Well,
Can,
the only other option is to make a motion with all these suggested changes.
with this, we can do that? What, Mark, how do we word that?
Well, I know Amanda's been taking diligent notes the whole time through, so.
Okay.
Oh.
So you're saying that we can make a motion with
All the corrections
all the
that have
corrections
been
that have been
identified.
discussed tonight? All right.
I think it's, that leaves too much room for vague. I mean, one thing, if we had a development that was, we were worried was gonna slip in under the radar, but there's nothing to vote on. I say we just postpone it.
Again, it's the discretion of the board.
I make a motion, we postpone to next month.
I don't want.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Harvey to postpone to next month. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Is there any other discussion on the matter?
is the
All-
vote,
Go ahead, go ahead.
is postponing to next month just to verify that,
Well, they'll
All
just
these
come
changes
back,
have been made?
we'll basically come back, all changes, yes.
or is it something that we could, do we have to wait a whole month for this to be done, or can we vote sooner, or?
That's good.
Good call, special.
Good call.
And I actually have like
A
an
date?
addition when we get after this.
I'm sorry?
About that.
You got what?
Something to add as far as a potential special call anyways, after y'all get done with
Okay,
this.
so we could do, when we have, you've got a potential special call meeting, we could do that at this time, okay?
We're on discussion right now for the postponement for next month. so. Any other discussion on that?
Can we move to table this till,
We have this motion.
I don't know, can we move to table the motion till end of the meeting? Or is that something you can do? to
Motion
see?
already made.
I know, I mean,
Yeah, had to fill it, you can remake one. So. Any other?
All right, so in other words, we can't say that we're gonna table this till she sets another call meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Not with the motion that you already have in a second.
Can John amend the motion
If second's good.
Sure.
to do that? Yeah, you can amend it to say that we're gonna table it until the special meeting?
Well, I just said until, okay, so
Right.
the motion is to postpone it until we meet again,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
Okay, all right, so Commissioner Harper's made a motion to postpone the possible action of of the Atoka subdivision regulations until the, planning commission meets again.
Correct.
Are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Martin's in agreement with that, keeps a second. Is there any other discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All right. Next up, on the agenda is just the adjournment. However, I would like to hear proposed dates.
Yes, we have a minor plat that Jim has under review, like he's looking at it, and, looks like it's kind of slipped through the cracks. So we were hoping that we could get, a special call maybe for October the 26th, if that is possible. Which is next Thursday.
Week from Thursday, works for me.
Me too.
I won't be here.
I will, we can get,
I can call in. I'll be in Dallas.
can you, Matt?
I can do one at 7, but I can't at 6.
I'm available.
She can too.
Yeah.
I'd have to push the meeting time back for me to be here.
To 7.
Cause I can't till like 4.
Okay.
Okay.
26 and 7?
I could do that. My daughter has a choir concert on at 6 p.m., so I will not be missing that.
Yeah, it won't last long.
It'll last like 10, 15 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking at a potential meeting for October 26th at 7 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments by any board members?
Motion to adjourn?
Have a motion to adjourn, I have a second. With that objection, we stand adjourned.